One of the most powerful cartoons that I've come across in a while is one by Tom Toro of the New Yorker magazine, which shows a man in a tattered business suit and tie sitting around a campfire amidst a future wasteland, telling three children, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. Now it's funny, but it's also tragically so true of how the world works today. The way we measure progress and success in our world is severely broken. Countries are judged by how fast gross domestic product or GDP grows, and corporate stocks are deemed good investments also by how fast they can advance their net incomes, regardless of how it's achieved. The most successful business models are racing to spur consumption of their products beyond what consumers really need. As a result, carbon emissions trajectories are leading us toward a catastrophic world that's 3 to 6 degrees Celsius warmer. Human activity is warming the Earth 5,000 times faster than the most rapid natural warming occurrence in our planet's past. And species are going extinct faster than at any period in geologic history. And I'm sure many of you that have just watched the news yesterday saw that UN report that just came out talking about over 1 million species that will be lost in the coming decades because of what we're doing to the planet. Microplastics are already being found in organisms dwelling in the deepest reaches of the Marianas Trench, as well as the pristine Pyrenees Mountains of France and Spain. These are just a few examples of the wide-scale destruction that humans are wreaking on our only home. Now, the international NGO Global Footprint Network estimates that we already use up 1.5 Earths each year, just feeding our current level of wants and needs. Now that's 50% more than our planet's ability to replenish the resources used up. Now with each passing year, we see stronger and stronger evidence of the link between human activity and the climate crisis that's unfolding before our eyes. The year 2018 ranked as the 4th warmest year on record, with the 5 warmest years having occurred just since 2010. In June 28th of last year, Oman in the Arabian Peninsula experienced the highest nighttime temperature ever recorded on Earth at a scorching 42.6 degrees Celsius. We usually talk about cool nights in the desert. This was definitely not one of them. This was the hottest. The night never dipped below 42.6 degrees Celsius. The hottest temperature ever to occur in Africa was likewise recorded in Ouargla, Algeria, at a searing 51.1 degrees Celsius. A summer heat wave in Japan had more than 22,000 people hospitalized with heat stroke. And of course, I guess you all remember all the devastating wildfires in California, in Mati, Greece, in Australia, and even the normally damp and cool countries like England and Sweden. We also had wildfires there. 2018 also saw unprecedented droughts in South Africa, Morocco, Spain, India, Iraq, that have caused reservoirs to dry up, affecting food production and harvest, and resulting to water rationing, even the threat of completely turning off all water supply in Cape Town. And just to give you an idea, I think Metro Manila uses about 165 liters per person per day. The world average is probably, I think, about 125. In Cape Town, they had to bring down their consumption to about 50 liters per person per day. And if the rains had not come to fill up the reservoirs, they would have gone down to 25. But you know what? What they're finding out is that at 50 liters per day, they have a comfortable life. It's still possible, but you have to make the adjustments. And now they're looking at ways to see how can we continue consuming water at that level, because this is going to be the new normal. This is going to be the world we're going to live in. Now, of course, you all remember Typhoon Ompong, or the international name was Mangkut, which hit northern Philippines, and it caused flash flooding, storm surges, and landslides that left a death toll of at least 95 people before hitting. It went over to Hong Kong. And Typhoon Mangkut, when it hit Hong Kong, is now officially Hong Kong's most intense storm since record keeping began in 1946. In July, torrential rains in Japan also brought its worst flooding in decades. And in September, Typhoon Jebi turned into the most powerful to hit the country in 25 years, leaving a trail of destruction throughout the whole Kansai region. While in the US, I'm sure you remember Hurricane Florence. It dumped more than 8 trillion gallons of rains that caused flooding in North Carolina. And only 2 years before, in 2016, Hurricane Matthew caused similar flooding in that state. The North Carolina Governor Ray Cooper acknowledges the constancy of these extreme weather events and the need to plan for it, saying, when you have 2 500-year floods within 2 years of each other, it's pretty clear it's no longer a 500-year flood. Now, with every passing year, it's becoming increasingly tougher to deny that our climate is changing faster than previously imagined due to human activity. A large and growing number of the world's largest corporations participating in the Carbon Disclosure Project, more than 75% as opposed to only 10% in 2010, they now incorporate climate change into their business strategies. It's not CSR, it's into their business strategies. And I believe that today, we are living through one of history's great paradigm shifts. An age wherein we're only just beginning to realize the immense impact we've had on the planet, and that we urgently need to overhaul how we relate with the Earth if we want to keep it habitable for humans in the decades to come. There is no plan B, or planet B, as some would say. Of course, paradigm shifts are never easy. They never have been throughout history. But as the environmentalist and author Bill McKibben rightly puts it, the math is hard to argue with. Business as usual and growth as usual spell an end to the world as usual. This is one overwhelming fact of our lifetimes. PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC, quantifies what the world needs to do to keep global temperature rise to less than 2 degrees Celsius. But you know, I have to say that this 2 degrees Celsius is outmoded. We really have to target a much lower threshold of 1.5. But at 2, they emphasize that we must reduce the carbon intensity of the economy. The carbon intensity is actually the amount of carbon emitted per peso or per dollar of GDP. And we have to reduce it by 6% each year until 2100. Now, although this number looks modest, this number is 9 times the current rate of improvement being experienced in the world today. And so, when you look at the magnitudes, this only underscores, the magnitude of the transformation that's needed. In fact, the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, released just last October 2018 a very important report urging dramatic action to limit global warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius if we wish to avoid a dangerous, irreversible, and what they call a game-over climate crisis. That's game over for humanity, which threatens, again, everything that we know. The normative reduction in CO2 emissions is still possible, but unprecedented in scale, and in the words of Piers Foster, who's one of the lead authors of this report, requires us to, quote, do everything and do it immediately. Now, actually, just focus on that graph, but it's not quite clear. Is there a better graph? There. No, on the bottom. This is the kind of reduction that you need. Take a look at how steep that graph is. This is the way emissions have climbed in terms of gigatons. And we're probably at this today, close to the 2019. And emissions still went up over the last year. But look at how, if we have to go down by 2055, that's the kind of steep trajectory that carbon emissions have to go down by. If you delay that and the world continues to increase that, imagine how much that point at the bottom stays the same. See how much steeper that line becomes and how much more impossible it will become for future generations. Now, at First Gen, we believe that our platform of businesses and our way to play are all geared toward this goal. Our natural gas plants are key to bringing down the carbon intensity of the economy, as they emit less than half of the carbon and only a fraction of the other pollutants per kilowatt hour relative to an equivalent sized coal plant. Now, this is key to keeping the economy humming and our lights on, even as we transition to a decarbonized world. Today, these plants run on the country's own indigenous gas field, Camago Malampaya, but we are currently preparing for the day that these fields no longer have indigenous gas through the development of what could be the country's first liquefied natural gas or LNG import terminal. In December 2018, we signed a joint development agreement with Tokyo Gas to push this forward. And it's an exciting time to be doing this, as LNG suppliers worldwide are only just beginning to innovate and show flexibility on gas contracts never before seen in the world of LNG contracting. Just this April 2019, Shell and our partner Tokyo Gas signed the world's first coal-indexed LNG contract. And this signals that gas producers are now willing to fight head-to-head against coal plants in competitive power markets. But I have to say that gas is cheaper than coal, even in our Philippine market today. So don't let anybody tell you that we need it because we need cheap power for industrial development. That's absolutely false. Our geothermal plants are today the only large-scale 24/7 sources of renewable energy. The relatively fixed pricing we are able to offer our electricity customers is a massive advantage and gives them certainty at a time when our coal-based competitors cannot. In addition, the massive transformation taking place at EDC, or Energy Development Corp, is exciting and promises to transform them into a leaner but more robust and resilient player and competitor. Now, our decision several years ago to slam the door on developing any coal-fired power for ourselves was prescient. Even as more coal-fired capacity comes online globally, what's happening is that their utilization and capacity factors are falling. The International Energy Agency, or IEA, figures for 2017 show that the average capacity factor for coal plants globally has fallen even more to about 52.8%. That's down from 59.3% in 2013. Now, I'm sure for many of these coal plant owners, this is alarming because this technology needs economics, or the economics only makes sense when it's run at base load rates of 70 to 80%. So they're not getting that anymore. Now, in fact, when I was looking at the IEA figures, and you look at all of that, on an average, you're seeing many countries around the world where they're only seeing 40%, 30% dispatch. The only one that's bringing up that average is Japan, which is running their coal plants at about 82%. And that's because, again, they don't have the nuclear plants running. Now, of course, that's going to change because you see Japan, like for our partner Tokyo Gas, again, it's also beefing up the amount of LNG plants that they have, the natural gas plants that they have. Now, the implication is that many coal plants today are being run suboptimally and expensively. The fact that they are required to ramp up and down because of those low capacity factors frequently also causes thermal fatigue of components, of materials, and then corrosion that negatively impacts the efficiency and emissions even more. And we're seeing that happening here also in the country, in the Philippines, where many of those coal plants are going down because of boiler tube leaks and all of that. Almost on a daily basis, I see that coming out. Now, aside from the fact that coal-fired power no longer has a place in a world that needs to decarbonize rapidly, its economics are being rendered uncompetitive in grids increasingly being penetrated by more intermittent renewable energy sources. And again, that's driving home the fact that many of the coal plants cannot operate on a baseload basis because, again, most people are starting to put solar on the roofs. Even malls are putting that. And so it's changing the shape of demand in that way. So in a sense, the days of coal are numbered. More so, as over 100 global financial institutions, public development banks like the World Bank, the European Investment Bank, Asian Development Bank, national development finance institutions in countries like the Netherlands, Brazil, Sweden, KfW, Germany, the export credit agencies, mostly from OECD member countries, private banks such as Morgan Stanley, Credit Agricole, ING, US Bancorp, Deutsche Bank, Banco Santander, Citibank, HSBC, Standard Chartered, and even insurance companies like AXA, Swiss Re, Lloyds, Generali, Nippon Life, all of them have announced coal finance restrictions as first steps toward more substantive action in support of the Paris Agreement. And you know, it's funny that about 2 years ago, I was giving a presentation at the Asia Business Council precisely on this, on climate change and how we were reacting to it. And one of the presenters was also the chairman of one of the largest banks. Maybe I won't say the name anymore, but it's one of the largest banks in the world. And of course, he came to me after and he said, you know, Piki, there's a lot of pressure on us, and a lot of that pressure is coming because I get it from my staff who are young people, and they're telling me that they're asking me why am I continuing to finance coal plants and coal mines. They're questioning me. Every time they interview candidates now for employment, those candidates are the ones interviewing them and asking them, what is your policy towards financing coal plants? I mean, it's coming out, and the beauty of this, of course, sad to say, it's not really coming from our generation anymore. It's coming from the youth. The youth are becoming, the millennials are actually becoming the largest consumer class in the US, and it's all over the world. This is changing. And it's becoming, not only that, they're also becoming the largest employee base. So they're starting to change the world in that way, in their own way, because they care about the kind of world that they're going to live in. And sad to say, it's not our generation anymore that's determining this. Maybe it's because we won't be around to see these changes, but I think we will be. But it's also because they're now starting to think about their world and the world of their own children and what it's going to look like. So our world today teems with change and disruption. And at First Gen and parent company FPH, we're all incessantly and purposefully sensing the wind and reading the tea leaves. And in such a world marked by so much complexity, we must also keep our organizations alert as well as agile. But let me just say that real and lasting shareholder value can only be had when we place the interests of all our stakeholders, our customers, the planet, and humanity at the center of everything that we do. The world's paradigms are shifting yet again, and as a company, we intend to help that shift in the best way we can. It is amongst these great challenges where we intend to build the many great opportunities that will foster true shareholder value. Thank you for your continued trust and unwavering support.